quick note for our listeners. We've just added something new for our Patreon community. On top of early access and bonus episodes, the Great Trail members can now listen to the After the Trail. A special segment we'll be releasing after each case. It's where I put aside the script for a while and share my own thoughts, reflections, and what stayed with me while researching the story. If you'd like to hear more and join a growing community of listeners who walked this trail with us, you can find it on Patreon at the Great Trail level. And now, let's get into today's story. On the evening of 29th of August 2007 in Brasov, Romania, lawyer Elodia Ghinescu vanished without a trace. Her disappearance gripped the country like no other case before it. A respectable lawyer, a mother, and the wife of a police officer, gone with no body ever found. What followed was one of the most publicized investigations in Romanian history. A murder conviction built on circumstantial evidence, and a media frenzy that turned the case into nightly entertainment. Almost 2 decades later, Elodia's story still divides opinion. Was justice truly served? And why did her case capture a nation's imagination? This is the case of Elodia Ghinescu. In 2007, Romania had just joined the European Union. For many Romanians, it was a moment of promise and change, a country stepping into modern Europe. But the old problems of the post-communist, post-revolution years still lingered. Corruption scandals dominated the news. Businessmen faced charges of fraud. Politicians were accused of bribery, and police officers themselves were caught in misconduct cases. The EU had pressed Romania to set up anti-corruption watchdogs, but many citizens doubted they had the strength to take on the powerful. For ordinary people, the feeling was simple. Justice could be bent if you had money or influence. If you didn't, you were on your own. And that's what made the disappearance of one woman resonate so strongly. She wasn't anonymous, she was part of the system itself, a lawyer married to a police officer. Her case would become more than a personal tragedy. It would be seen as a test of whether Romania's justice system could be trusted to uncover the truth. Elodia Marilena Ghinescu was born in 1968 in Târgoviște. From a young age, she was known for her determination. Friends and relatives later recalled that she was bright, ambitious, and had a strong sense of independence. She pursued a law degree at the University of Bucharest and, after graduating, settled in Brasov, one of Romania's most beautiful cities. There, she built a career as an attorney, specializing in civil law and divorce cases. Colleagues described her as meticulous, sharp, and unafraid of confrontation in court. She had a reputation for fighting hard for her clients, and she was not easily intimidated, even when facing powerful opponents. She met Christian Chaka in the early 2000s, and from the start, they seemed well matched. They married on July 18, 2004, and their son Patrick was born in January 2005. Her personal life revolved around Patrick. Friends often remarked that while she worked long hours, her devotion to him was clear. She was determined to provide him with stability and a bright future. By her late 30s, Elodia had what many considered a successful life, a respected career, financial security, and a family. Yet, behind the surface, her marriage to police officer Christian Chaka was deeply strained. The cracks in their relationship, suspicions of infidelity, arguments, and talks of divorce would soon become central to the most famous disappearance in Romania's modern history. Christian Chaka was born in 1971. Not much is known about his early life or childhood. What is certain is that by early 1990s, he joined the police force in Brasov. Over time, he worked his way into the fraud division, focusing on financial crimes and white-collar investigations. Colleagues described him as competent but unremarkable. He was seen as professional in his duties, but not a standout. Some accounts even painted him as reserved or cold, and that he could be charming only when it suited him. Unlike his reserved behavior with friends and colleagues, in his marriage to Elodia, things were far from calm. Friends of Elodia later recalled her suspicions that Christian was unfaithful. He, in turn, accused her of being emotionally distant and too focused on her career. Their arguments were frequent and at times heated. And by 2007, their relationship had fractured beyond repair. Elodia had reportedly confided in friends about divorce, while Christian was said to be deeply resentful when he heard of it. By that point, the marriage was held together only by their young son, Patrick. And whilst in public they could appear like any other professional couple, a lawyer and a policeman raising a child in a quiet Brasov neighborhood, behind closed doors, tensions were mounting until, in 2007, they would explode into a case that gripped the entire nation. It was a warm, late summer day in Brasov on 29th of August 2007. Elodia spent much of it as she often did, balancing her busy legal practice with the demands of her household. Their young son, Patrick, was staying with her mother that day, something that happened often when she was busy with work. That afternoon, she made a series of phone calls, including to colleagues. The last confirmed activity from her mobile was around 4:30 p.m. After that, her phone went silent. Evening arrived, and the details of what unfolded become less certain. Christian would later tell investigators that nothing unusual happened. According to him, he and Elodia were at home. The evening passed uneventfully, and when he woke up the next morning, she was gone. But others remembered it differently. Around 10 p.m., a neighbor reported hearing raised voices from the couple's apartment. She described it as a heated quarrel between them. What exactly was said or done that night has never been fully established. What is clear is that this was the last time anyone outside the household heard Elodia alive. The following morning, she didn't appear at work, something very unusual of her, and calls from colleagues and family went unanswered. Days went by in silence, and whilst friends and relatives grew increasingly worried, Christian suggested she might have left on her own and needed space. For a while, that explanation was all anyone had. Then, as summer slipped into autumn in Brasov, for those who knew her family, her friends, and above all, her young son, the absence of Elodia Ghinescu had already become impossible to ignore. And soon, her unusually long absence would finally reach the authorities, marking the beginning of an investigation that placed her marriage, her home, and her husband under sharp focus. After Elodia was reported missing at the end of August 2007 by her colleagues, the police moved quickly. A missing persons file was opened, and the first person they turned to was her husband, Christian. When questioned, he told them that she had left during the night and never returned, and with that information, officers at first treated it as a disappearance with no clear sign of crime. And no doubt, without the persistence of her family and the pressure from colleagues and her employer, the case might have very well just ended there. A trusted policeman had said his wife simply left, and that could have been the end of it. But the pressure mattered. On 5th of September, after her employer formally pushed the issue, the case was escalated. And with that, police finally began to look closer. As they spoke with friends and family and heard of the troubled marriage, combined with Christian's delay in reporting her missing, and the fact that no one had heard from her, their suspicions grew quickly. The first stop was the last place she had been seen, her apartment. At first, it looked clean, but when investigators used luminol, blood traces showed up in the bedroom, bathroom, and all across the hallway. At the same time, detectives spoke with neighbors, colleagues, and friends. Neighbors recalled hearing raised voices on the night Elodia vanished, and friends confirmed what colleagues had already told the police. She had spoken about divorce, the marriage was strained, and Christian was cheating on her while showing growing resentment toward her because she focused on her career. The next key finding came from a conversation with a plumber. On 7th of September, he was called to the apartment because of flooding in the ensuite bathroom. He later described how water had been running, towels were spread across the floor to soak it up, and he even had to remove the toilet to stop the leak. His account stood out because neighbors had also reported hearing water running for hours in the days after Elodia disappeared. For investigators, this pointed to one thing: a cleanup taking place in the hours and days after she went missing. Combined with the testimonies and the unusual blood traces found throughout the apartment, the picture of what happened was slowly starting to take shape. Not long after, the search expanded well beyond the apartment, into the hills surrounding Brasov. Brasov lies in the heart of Romania's southern Carpathians, surrounded by forested ridges, cliffs, and woodland. The city feels like a small human settlement set against a wild landscape where bears and other wildlife often roam in the forests not far from homes. In that setting of hills and trees, the police faced a daunting question. Where do you begin when there are countless hiding places, ravines, and dumping spots? Their first move was to search known dumping grounds, places locals often use to leave waste. After many days of combing through the terrain, police made a shocking discovery in a ravine often used for dumping. They found women's clothing believed to be Elodia's, along with a police uniform. Meanwhile, as the investigation unfolded, Cristian's behavior grew even more suspicious. He began suggesting to others that Elodia might have left on her own accord, perhaps even with another man. Yet, there was no proof of that, and her wallet, ID, and personal belongings were still in the apartment, things she would never have left behind. As weeks passed, the investigation grew larger. Cadaver dogs were brought in to search the dumping grounds. Teams of officers scoured forests and mountain roads around Brasov, and forensic labs in Bucharest worked day and night on the evidence. Yet, despite the scale of the search, one thing was still missing: Elodia's body. By the end of 2007, the direction of the investigation was clear. Elodia was presumed dead, and Cristian was considered the main suspect. But without a body, the investigation faced the hardest question of all. How do you prove beyond a reasonable doubt that a murder has taken place when the victim has never been found? Unfortunately, justice would drag its feet. It would take another 5 years before Cristian was finally arrested in December 2012, and nearly 7 years before a court would hand down a conviction. As the investigation unfolded, the disappearance of Elodia Ghinescu spilled out of police files and into the living rooms across Romania. At the center of it was OTV, the television channel run by presenter Dan Diaconescu. Beginning in September 2007, OTV turned Elodia's case into a nightly program. No other disappearance in Romania had ever been given such treatment. Night after night, entire shows were built around speculation. It was an entire spectacle with psychics invited to describe visions of Elodia's whereabouts, former police officers dissecting theories live on air. They even brought in actors to reenact arguments between Elodia and Cristian, as though it was a soap opera. On some broadcasts, producers went even further. They displayed maps of Romania marked with supposed psychic leads about where her body might be. And if this wasn't enough, at one point, an actress dressed like Elodia was filmed wandering through a mock courtroom, replaying her final night. And all this was happening on everyone's TV, turning into a strange mix of tragedy and entertainment. It became the main topic of conversation across the country. Ask any Romanian where they were when the Elodia case was unfolding, and most will remember. The constant coverage also meant the case could not be pushed aside or forgotten, especially considering that the main suspect was a policeman, part of the same force investigating him. For the public, this raised questions about trust and accountability. At the time, many already felt that Romania's police and justice system were weak, even corrupt, and the Elodia case brought those doubts into focus. For Elodia's family, the nightly spectacle on TV was devastating. Her mother spoke of the pain of watching her daughter's life dissected in public, while her son Patrick, still just a child, grew up with his mother's name tied to endless tabloid stories. The obsessions and intense media coverage also shaped Cristian's fate. Long before his trial, he was already vilified as Romania's most infamous husband. His defense later argued that constant coverage created a trial by media, one that risked shaping judges and the public before formal evidence was ever heard. Even Romania's media regulator stepped in and fined OTV and other channels for their excessive and sensational coverage, warning that broadcasts blurred the lines between news and entertainment. Yet, there was no denying the impact. The Elodia phenomenon showed how unusual this was for Romania. Only 18 years after communism, people were not used to seeing crime cases covered like this. Under the old system, the media had been censored and stories like Elodia's would have never been broadcasted. For many, it felt shocking, even abnormal. But it also signaled change. Romania was moving into a space where media was free, people could share opinions, and crime stories became national headlines. And soon, all that attention would shift from the investigation to the courtroom, where prosecutors began building their case against Cristian Ciacă. Whilst the media spectacle was unfolding, the investigation was slowly moving towards one result. Prosecutors believed Cristian Ciacă had murdered his wife. But bringing him to justice was not a simple or fast process. In 2008, he was first detained, but DICOT, the branch of Romania's prosecution service that handles organized crime and terrorism, similar to the FBI in the US, decided the evidence was not strong enough, especially with no body. There were traces of blood and clothes and belongings found in the ravine, but at the time it still wasn't enough, at least not yet. In 2009, he faced separate charges for illegally accessing Elodia's email accounts after her disappearance, claiming he only wanted to see if she had been cheating on him. The case came after sensational reports of supposed sightings of Elodia abroad, stories that media eagerly amplified. But once again, the charges didn't hold, and Cristian walked free. For years, the murder case stalled, slowed by procedural delays and gaps in evidence. But in 2011 and 2012, science had finally caught up, even within the Romanian justice system. Forensic teams went back to the apartment and uncovered new biological traces belonging to Elodia, findings that strengthened the case. This time, investigators found more than just surface smears of blood. Beneath floorboards and hidden spots, they discovered clear biological evidence, which tests confirmed as Elodia's. Finally, on 5th of December 2012, Cristian was arrested in Brasov on the murder charge and later held at Penitenciarul Colibaș in Argeș County. The arrest itself became breaking news across Romania, and television crews surrounded the courthouse. For the family, it was at last proof that authorities were willing to name Cristian as the man responsible for Elodia's disappearance. The trial began in 2012 and quickly turned into a national event. Journalists packed the courtroom, live reports aired on TV, and almost every word spoken inside the court was repeated and debated outside. For many Romanians, it felt less like a trial and more like the ending of a story they had been watching for years. The prosecution went first. They laid out a narrative built on three main pillars: forensics, concealment, and motive. Experts testified that the traces of blood found in the apartment were far too extensive to be explained by an accident. Stains on the bedroom door showed projected spray, consistent with a violent blow. And in the bathroom, signs of scrubbing and the plumber's testimony about flooding suggested an attempted cleanup. The second pillar was concealment. Cristian admitted he had washed sheets and cleaned floors in the days after Elodia's disappearance, which can be just a normal chore, but combined with the clothing and police uniform discovered in a ravine near Brasov, the prosecution argued that it was a clear attempt to hide the crime. The third pillar was motive. Witnesses testified about the deteriorating marriage. Friends told the court that Elodia had spoken of divorce. They described Cristian's infidelity, his resentment towards her and her career, and the bitter arguments between the couple. Prosecutors argued that he could not bear the prospect of losing control of the marriage or custody of his son. The defense, in turn, focused on the gaps in the investigation. They stressed that there was no body, no weapon, and no direct witness. They argued that Elodia might have chosen to disappear, even though her ID, wallet, and all her belongings were still in the apartment, pointing instead to unconfirmed reports of sightings in Italy and Dubai. They claimed prosecutors had bowed to the media pressure and that Cristian was being judged in the press before the court heard the full evidence. Cristian also gave his testimony. He denied harming his wife and repeated that she had left on her own. He said he was the victim of a witch hunt pushed forward by the media. During his testimony, he stayed calm and controlled. Some saw this as composure, while others thought it showed a cold detachment. The trial was covered daily in the press, with TV stations replaying witness statements and dissecting the lawyers' arguments. For Romanians who had followed the case for years, it felt like a conclusion was finally within reach. And after months of hearings, in July 2013, judges found him guilty and sentenced him to 22 years. On 18th of June 2014, the Pitești Court of Appeal reduced the sentence to 15 years and 8 months, which became final. For prosecutors and family, it was a rare victory in a no-body case. For the defense, it was a miscarriage of justice, and for the public, it was the end of a story that had gripped the country like no other. And yet, despite the guilty verdict, Cristian never revealed what truly happened on that night. He never confessed, never offered answers, never said where Elodia's body lies. And because of that silence, the case, even with a conviction, feels forever unfinished. Cristian Ciocca's conviction in 2013 did not end the story. If anything, it left the country divided. For some, the verdict was proof that justice could be done, even against one of their own, a police officer. The blood evidence, the clean department, the delay in reporting, all of it pointed in their eyes to guilt. But others were not so easily convinced. Could a man truly be sentenced for murder without a body, a weapon, or a witness? For that group, the case set a dangerous precedent, shaped as much by media pressure as by evidence. The debate reached beyond Cristian's guilt or innocence. It reflected a wider anxiety about Romania's justice system and about the power of the press. Cazul Elodia became shorthand for media obsession and trial by television. Law schools used it as a case study. Commentators returned to it whenever another disappearance made headlines. It was, as some journalists later wrote, less about one crime than about the moment Romanian society stepped into an age where crime, media, and justice collided in the open. But beyond the courtrooms and the cameras, there was Elodia. She was not just a case or a headline. She was a respected lawyer, a daughter, a friend, and above all, a devoted mother. She was ambitious, independent, and determined to give her son the best future she could. Her family found little comfort in the conviction. Without the body, there was no funeral, no graveside, and in the end, no closure. Her mother has spoken of endless pain of not knowing where her daughter rests. Her son grew up knowing his mother was reduced to headlines while his father was behind bars for her death. Elodia Ghinescu's life was stolen far too early, and her story turned into spectacle. But she deserves to be remembered for who she was, a woman of strength and love, a talented lawyer with a brilliant career, a devoted daughter and friend, and above all, a mother whose greatest role was caring for her son. That brings us to the end of this episode of Clue Trail. The case of Elodia Ghinescu has gripped the Romanian public for many years. Apart from being a tragic crime that cut short the life of a young woman far too early, it also changed the way the public thought about law, media, and justice, showing how one disappearance could grow into a national story. If you'd like to go deeper into the case, join me for our new After the Trail segment on Patreon, where I share my own reflections and behind-the-scenes thoughts, just for the Great Trail members. You can also follow us on Instagram, TikTok, Facebook, and now on YouTube, where we'll be sharing short videos and extra visuals from certain cases. And if you're listening on Apple or Spotify, leaving a quick rating or review helps new listeners discover the show. Thank you for walking this trail with us. Until next time, stay safe and stay curious.